Cutting through the BS of biologicals. That's what we're doing in this episode of Calibrating Your Agronomy. Hey there, welcome to another fantastic video about calibration of your agronomy. It is the Calibrated Agronomy guys. That's Clint, Frese, and Jared Cook. We're joined by Ashton Gronewold. Ashton is an Illinois farmer and also has a great deal of familiarity with the product lineup of Calibrated Agronomy. And we're talking about the BS of biologicals. Let's face it, you've heard it. There are literally thousands of these companies and products out here. You've heard them called snake oil. You've heard the pitch from all of these companies. Which ones work, which ones don't? Do they actually have a place in production agriculture? Is this just a phase? Is it a bunch of venture capital money that's trying to come into the ag space? The truth is it's most all of those things, but we're going to get it from the experts who have done the trials, done the experiments, and now have the experience to share with you, cutting through the BS of biologicals. Jared, when I thought of this whole topic, I said, I got to have you on here. You and I both have experience with a biological bionutrients company up there in the inland Northwest, as it's called. You probably are one of the people that was on this, I think, before a lot of the Midwesterners were. You are a crop consultant working out of Idaho. You cover potatoes, sugar beets, alfalfa, specialty crops, etc. Is it fair to say that maybe you were dabbling in this before it became mainstream?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we've been, well, Damien, I think 15 years in the biological space. So, yeah, we can say we were the cool kids before it got cool.
There was a chart about a year and a half ago it came out, and maybe everybody has seen this. I'm going to send it to the producer and have him put it up here. It shows the proliferation of companies and the products that are in this biological space, testament to the fact that a whole bunch of money, especially when ag was really up, was flowing in here. How many of them are going to be around 5 years from now, Clint?
I don't think it's as many as there is right now. I think it's going to come down substantially. But a lot of the
half,
less than half.
One fifth will be around 5 years from now. I actually my prediction, and I'm not the one in the field like you guys. I think 1/5 of the biological companies are here 3 to 5 years from now.
Yep, I would agree.
Ashton, you're a farm guy. Say biologicals at a farm meeting 10 years ago, and you get a bunch of folded arms. Say it now, still get some folded arms, but you get a little bit more acceptance. Where are you on the biological journey?
Well, I think first and foremost, you look at the money flow like you were talking, and all these major companies, which are held in very few hands, have all been buying up either actives or companies as a whole, and not really doing much with them. So you just look at the money flow. That's where we're headed for sure. We started back 7-8 years ago with Clint and Luke when they started their business, and have been trialing all these different products and looking at what they do here locally on our farm, and have been along for the journey for that for sure, because I think it's the next step.
What works? And I'll go to the Illinois guys on this one first, and then I'll go back out to Jared. What works and what doesn't? I mean, if a biological says we make your plants healthier, I can buy into that. And then we did a prior recording with Thomas Dykstra, Dr. Thomas Dykstra, that healthy plants don't need insecticides. So you can make the case. It's just some of it's difficult to define what the biological does. Whereas if I spray an insecticide on a plant, it kills the bugs. Actually, it ends up killing every bug, and that's sometimes bad. It even kills the beneficial ones. Biological ones, I think it's a little tougher to define. Is that the problem, Clint?
It is a big problem. It's a problem we've had with our company, is trying to define what they actually do. So we've resorted to measuring what we do. So where we really started our bread and butter was on the nutrient pathways. So understanding how biology creates nutrient use efficiencies, or kind of the biological nutrient bump per se. So we spent a lot of time with tissue and sap sampling, actually measuring the increase in nutrient flow due to biologicals. And so where we're at today is being able to look at the biological, what's in it, what species are in it, how strong are those species, or what's the quantity of those microbes per species, and what roles do they do for the plant. And where we're at today is trying to get that complete community of microorganisms that will work, like you said, with plant health without competing pathogens, increasing nutrient use efficiencies, and we can measure that real time. I think that what the future holds is really a soil test to see where we're at biologically, and then placing the right product along with it. And that's kind of what's been missing in my mind a little bit of all the noise. We don't even know what's missing. We're not even looking at it. We're just making a blind recommendation.
Jared, when I think about what the promise of biologicals, I think it happens in the soil. You're much more well versed on all aspects of agronomy than me, but we still don't understand the stuff below our feet. It's a living organism. I just started hearing about bacteria to fungi ratios in the last year doing my job with Extreme Ag. We never talked about that in the old days. I think the promise of biologicals is in the soil, which then feeds the plant. And I'm not sure that maybe that's the tough sell right now is it's because we don't understand the soil enough then to understand how to use biologicals more beneficially.
Absolutely. I think that's been our advantage is 15 years ago when we started playing in this space, it was kind of, hey, this is a cool concept. Let's try it. And it was all based on visual evaluations and do we see yield gains? Well, over the last 15 years, look at the new technologies that have emerged in being able to test and measure this. We got soil and biological testing laboratories geared up that can tell you what's in your soil, what's in the plant. We didn't have that 15 years ago. So as technologies advance to allow us to see and measure, I think that's given us the upper hand to do a better job at deploying these biological products for a successful outcome. Whereas before it's just guessing.
Right. Okay. So therefore, we're talking about the whole episode here is called Cutting Through the BS of Biologicals. What's the BS part of it then? Ashton, you're the farm guy. What's the BS of it? The BS of it to you as a farmer?
I think the main thing would be just if somebody tells you they have it all figured out. That's the big BS part right there. I mean, working with Clint and Luke here locally for several years now, they'd be the first to tell you that it's an ever changing, ongoing nuance. Whether it's environmentally or weather, you name it, crop, all those things play into it, and I think just the continual learning, like Jared said, with the testing and verification process, it's just a continual learning experience. So Jared's experience with 15 plus years has sped that process up a lot, but we're still trying to figure it out. I mean, every farm's different. There's so many different management practices from farm to farm too. So, you got to take into all the variability and diversity that's going on out here.
All right. Well, so Jared says 15 years, and then Clint's been dealing with this for 7 years, half of that. So that's still much more of a body of work than most farmers because this is still really new territory. What do biologicals do? What do they not do? If we're going to cut through the BS, Clint, what do biologicals do, and what do they not do?
Okay, so I think what they do, you got to look at it. There's a lot of products. So there's what I call a rifled approach, meaning a product that has one or two organisms, maybe 4 or 5, and they're designed to do and drive one process. And then there's diverse products like we have. What our stance on it is, we don't know enough about the soil microbiome and how those interactions work within the soil and the plant. Diversity is key. So what we're trying to do is hit the 4 main pathways, sub pathways of soil biology, and that is 1, the biocontrol. So that is biology that outcompetes or directly competes with a pathogen or a disease. The second one would be your biohormonal. It speeds up plant metabolism. All your plant growth hormones are produced biologically. Our products have all those in there. Stress adaptation pathways, those are the ones that produce exopolysaccharide productions.
Wait. Is he just throwing big words around? Is that really a word, Jared? Is that really a word?
It's a word. It's a real word. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm going through the thing here. Biocontrol, biohormonal, and you said there's 4 things here.
The third one is the stress adaptation. It's microorganisms that will produce compounds that section toxins off in the soil from the root system, as well as produce your defense hormones, and another hormonal response that biology is in control of. And then the fourth one that we have spent the most time on is your carbon and bionutrient pathways that increase the efficiency and flow of nutrition. So what we've been is the real BS to me is putting a number on what biology can do for fertility. Reduce your fertility by 50%, this many, use this biological and it's worth so many pounds. To me, that is all dictated by the year and the environment. We've done zero fertilizer applications where we use biology and had 230 bushel corn. We do it the next year where it won't quit raining and it's cloudy every day and it's 50 bushel corn. So what we have kind of found out, it's really bridging the gap between trying to learn, where our stance today is use biology to increase nutritional flow, create some efficiencies, reallocate those dollars to in season, and worked more holistically at our pathogen control. We're working with a lot of people out west where fungicides are resistant. The pathogens are resistant now. So I think we're trying to get ahead of that is really what we're after. So.
All right, I want to get into the biologicals to replace or enhance fungicide because that's a category all on its own. Before I do that, I want to go to Jared on this. All right, those 4 things right there. And what I liked is that Clint just said the BS part of it is if you are talking to someone that just wants to sell you on something, they've learned the power of using a number. I mean, obviously, we make the crack. Go to Commodity Classic, walk down the aisleway, and by the end of the aisle, at every booth, you're going to pick up 3 bushels more. So you'll have 300 bushel corn by the end of the aisle, right? Every booth you go to, we can get you 3 more bushels. We can get you 3 more bushels. You just said the BS part of it is when someone says, use this biologically based product and you can cut fertility by 50%. And you said, maybe. But you think that you're willing to admit that that's not that's got 9 different variables from weather to location to soil type to crop. That's the BS part of it. Am I right, Jared?
I think it is. Absolutely. Maybe the one caveat to that is,
So when a farmer asks you, what can I expect? You don't tell them, hey, use this and you can cut your fertility by 50%.
No, heavens no. That's setting yourself up for failure. I think where you can make that claim is in heavy manured ground, heavy compost use, where you have a big reserve of organic nutrients.
Yeah.
You can use these biological inputs to help free up that organic fraction of nutrient, making it plant available. That's where you can make those claims. But outside of a nutrient rich soil, man, that's too bold for me. I don't like that claim. In fact, that's what triggers the BS meter in me is when you hear that about a product.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to add to that, the Commodity Classic's a great example. There's a lot of sales organizations, and then there's other minded organizations. And, these guys here are research, verification, testing organization that obviously sell some product too. But to me, that's what's intriguing about what they do and why they do it. Is because it's the total opposite approach. They're trying to supply needs, to cover weaknesses, in plants. But ultimately it's about learning and about continuing to do it the right way and a better way, and find a better way to do it. And it's not just a sales organization that's trying to pump a bunch of product out here and blow it up and then try to sell it off type thing. So.
Well, I appreciate you saying those kind words about my friends. All right. But biologicals can reduce fertility use. And I think we're going to be under the gun to do that. I recorded a commentary video. We've over-applied nutrients for at least since World War II, right? When we started getting more what I'd call modern agriculture, the 50s on till today. We've over-applied it because it was fairly affordable. We've over-applied it because we didn't know any better. We over-applied it because there's no environmental scrutiny. We've over-applied it for a lot of things. We could stop. Arguably, you could cut applied fertility by half in many areas and on many crops. Are biologicals a key that's going to open the door for people to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a key. Because it's so crucial in the interaction. Like Jared said, taking inorganic nutrients to an organic or plant available form. Yep. We've just learned in the last 6 or 7 years about the rhizophagy process of how microbes carry nutrition inside their cells and into the root system, and then dump those for the plant to use. I mean, so it's a lot of it's advancing quick. And I think what we have measured with our products is anywhere from 15 to 40% increase in nutrient use efficiencies. And there's caveats to that, to weather, to soil type, like you've said, but that's kind of our baseline of where we start. So,
all right. Okay, that's your 7 years of experience says you can cut back on fertility by 15 to 40%. You're allowed to do that. Yep. The thing is, the person that's listening is going to say, "Yeah, but how do I know? How do I know going in? I mean, you're saying, do I base it on SAP tests or whatever? How do you justify it in your head? If I'm a farmer listening to this, I want to do this, but I don't want to take a yield hit."
Yeah, I think go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashton. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think from a grower standpoint, kind of like we were talking with all these promises from all these companies, you have to be willing to do the homework yourself. You can't just go out and buy into all these different scenarios or different twists on things. But, you truly have to be willing to deep dive into this stuff. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to change your perception and your perspective and your thought process if you really want to do it differently. Otherwise, you're going to fall back into old habits that are just too easy and comfortable, and you're just going to go do that again. So I think you really have to be willing to do extra things, take extra time, spend extra money, and do the little things and dive into the details if you really want it to be successful. Otherwise, you're just kind of peeing in the wind. So
when I tell these people that we're going to have no choice but to do fertility, applied nutrients, we're going to have to reduce. Wisconsin, very agricultural state, we're talking about nitrates in the water. Now, they blame dairy. But then I was in Nebraska and on stage talking about this, and they got nitrates in the water. Well, it's not because of dairy there. It's because we've been putting it in there. I think the strongest case for biologicals is, to Jared's point, opening up fertility that's been locked up because you've been over applying anyhow. If I'm in the business of either buying or selling it, that's where I think the value proposition is. Jared, am I right about that?
Absolutely, Damien. You're spot on. That would be my take for anybody that wants to be successful with biological inputs. You've got to have a management framework in place that allows you to validate what it's actually doing. And I can give you a great example. Early on in my days, we used a biological. It was kind of known just Bacillus subtilis. That's the BS of biologicals, right? That product, we used it for 2 years in a row, and what we saw out of it was a massive amount of nitrogen flux in the soil. It liberated nitrogen like a bandit. But thankfully, we were managing accordingly to take advantage of the nitrogen that Bacillus subtilis gave us. Had we been running blind, we had overshot our nitrogen management like probably 30-40% on the too much side, too much, and would have caused other problems down the line. So without a management framework, how do you know what these products are giving you? That's the piece of the puzzle everybody needs to wrap their head around.
Back to the fertility thing on the 15 to 40% reduction, et cetera. That's where I think I see USDA programs forcing us to have a nutrient management plan in place. I mean, big dairies, big hog operations have to do it for manure. I see it for, why wouldn't it be there when we're talking about phosphates in Lake Erie causing an algal bloom? We've been hearing about that for 30 years. Biologicals can help with this, but the learning is a big part of it. And Clint, maybe you can address this. How do I do it? Start me down the road. If I'm going to cut through the BS of biologicals, I'm bought in. I want to use biologicals. Take me down the road of now, how do I equate biological use to reducing fertility?
Well, it takes some pretty in-depth conversations about the farm history. Was there manure involved? Have you already been on a low fertility budget? I find widely varying degrees of how farmers manage. So you got to get a few of those things out of the way. But what I like to do is run strips with fertility. I'll run a high fertility strip and a low fertility strip, or a zero strip of, say, P and K. And we'll use those as validation tools to really hone that rate in. And so we do some in-season sap sampling, to really dial it in and see what the plant's uptaking. But some of these learning strips with fertility, as far as varying rates from 0 to a high rate to something more reduced and modest that we feel we can achieve on, has taken a lot of the worry away from the farmer's standpoint. He's got those validation strips to say, yeah, this worked, or no, where I applied more fertilizer, that it was better. So what we're finding most of the time is we can cut our P and K drastically and not have any yield ramifications. So,
okay, what biologicals do I need to use? Go around the horn here, because again, to a lot of people listening to this, and a lot of people that are, I call them farmers, but Ashton went down there to call them growers. I don't know when that switched. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that, to be honest with you. Growers. When I think of like a person that like has like grow lights in their basement, growing weed and like selling nickel bags, I think that's a grower. And I don't want to call my farmer friends that. Ashton, what do you think about that? Grower versus farmer?
I probably use them interchangeably. Today it's just grower, probably.
When you say grower, you don't think about somebody with grow lights in their basement, like selling nickel bags?
I really don't. I really don't. I think farmer around here is more of the livestock. It's the kind of all-encompassing thing. Grower, I guess, is the row crop stuff. But yeah, it's a good question. I like those deep thoughts.
Oh, I'm full of them. All right. What the person that's going to be still saying, all right, I'm willing to try this. I'm going to cut through the BS here, but which product do I use? What if I want to start doing a concerted effort to reduce in P and K, or just P and K to Clint's point, what product do I use? I mean, when I say, my God, there's 2,000 companies in the biological space and each of them have a dozen products, it's a lot to sort through. What do I use?
I mean, you got to use the product well, let me think of how to phrase this. You've got to use the companies that come to the table with all the information. What are the modes of action of my product? Huh? That's step number one. And then who has the data?
The mode of action, and then which one actually has a track record and can verify it.
Verify, yep.
Mode of action, verifiability. When you say mode of action, what do I need to look for mode of action?
So Clint mentioned earlier, about biocontrol, biohormonal pathways, nutritional pathways, stress adaptation pathways. That's what we're looking at.
Ashton, besides your subtle dig on me about my not so deep thought between growers and farmers, it wasn't lost on me. It wasn't lost on me that you were digging. It wasn't lost on me.
I was serious.
Yeah, right.
I liked it.
Where to speak from experience, because the person that's still a skeptic on utilizing biological products, what have you done wrong? Where was it a expense that you didn't get back, or where did it not work?
Oh, I'd say for us, we started off all in furrow, all with concentrated mold at the very beginning, and we didn't ever see the yield, the crazy yield swings like some people may have. Not that I don't think we had great biological activity, by any means, but I think for us it was, we may not have seen the yield gains, but in the long term, we've seen gains in other areas, whether that's the tilth and soil health, limited amounts of lime that we've needed, actually increasing phosphorus, soil test levels. Some of those things that we maybe didn't expect that we're now being able to see because of the verification. Yep. And then on the other side, I think the using biology throughout the year in small little increments and doses, we've seen a lot just because we're known for getting 5 to 7 inches of rain after we plant. So, what are the chances that biology is still viable and alive? And so being able to sprinkle that in throughout the year, kind of reestablish those populations. And I think when we were just going to that soil application in furrow, maybe our target was solely soil, where now, we're fall applications. So we're targeting, some of those diseases, the foliar applications as well with some diseases, and with increased activity for the nutrition that we're adding to those passes. So I think we were limiting ourselves on what we saw as the benefits. And now that we've been doing it for a few years, that's expanded where, we're seeing benefits we probably didn't even think about, at first.
So long term, tilth, active biological interaction, et cetera, in the soil, and that took a few years. So how you use them now, you used to put a lot of stuff in at time of planting in furrow. Now you're more of a season-long biological application.
Yeah, correct.
How many different products? How many on your Illinois farm? How many different biological-based products do you use? Well, in 2025, how many different? Will you use a half dozen?
Yeah, probably around a half dozen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
You'll do that
and basically every time we're making a pass, there's some sort of biological product going in that tank.
All right.
We can do that for a very, very, very small amount of our budget. And we can tie that with nutrition, and we're gaining a whole package by being able to do that by opposed to putting all that budget up front in one pass.
What type of biological product do you use, Clint, on your farming operation in Illinois?
I use the ones I make, Damien.
Okay, so tell me which ones and how you use them.
We use BioAggie as a standalone in furrow, and we stack it with the food source.
Okay, BioAggie is one of our products that you make. It is a calibrated agronomy product, yes?
It is. And we like to put that with the carbon or food source to kind of activate that, and then that allows it to buffer into the soil environment or buffer.
Is that an at time of planting thing?
That is an at planting. That's where we run our biggest rates. So our best practices as a whole, as a company, on my own farm, Ashton's farm, we run a bigger rate in furrow or at planting and in the fall on the residue, and then the smaller rates in season. And we're not spending a lot of money. In a lot of cases, $20 for the year, 30 at a max. So and that's the big thing I've seen on my own farm is the plant health. I've had to reevaluate my fungicide programs, my insecticide programs. Still use them late season when plant gets stressed, but we just don't need them early. We're trying to limit our soil applied fungicide. We want that to be natural. We want to build up species that will outcompete disease, and I think that's really what we are about at the end of the day is the sheer diversity. To try to overcome lots of obstacles instead of just spending the same amount of money to do one thing. That's my big thing.
You use a half dozen different products. Obviously, you make plenty of stuff. So you use a half dozen different of your own products.
Yeah, the base of what I use biologically is one product, and however, a lot of our biostimulants and foliar nutrition programs all carry biology in them, Damien. So a lot of the plant's very impressionable early. So like on our herbicide pass, we'll use ATP pump. Well, it's got biology in it. It will trigger plant defense. It'll trigger the plant's own immune system for disease tolerance. So we try to incorporate it as a company into a lot of what we do, even in our nutritional programs. So
I think one thing that's been good for our own farm on the evolution of the product lineup also, it started off as mainly just an in-furrow product where here locally there's not a lot of in-furrow options. And so that's branched out to, be a seed treatment as well. And so for us with the bean planter, corn planter, two different totally setups, that's allowed us to still get that biology where we want it to start the season off. Through that intelligence product. So that's been huge for us to be able to cover both crops. Whereas the first few years we were only able to put that, on the seed with our corn planter. The rest, the beans, we didn't have the same options. So just coming up, these guys and coming up with some more options for the ways the products can get to where they need to be has been huge too.
Are these things alive? Do I have to keep them refrigerated? Do I have to feed them?
No, our lineup's stable up to 2 years, and there is activity in the jug, but it's under 10%. We can maintain oxygen levels. We don't crash. So no, really the only real caveat is don't let it freeze. We've done studies where it sets out in direct sunlight all year, no problem. So I mean we feel good about stability, storage. So
you said it can't freeze.
Freeze is the only thing. Yep.
Okay. Jared, when you talk about the you've been working for a long time with your growers out there. give me three big takeaways. One big takeaway. One thing that you're like every time I get somebody turned on. The first big success I show them is this, and then how you go about doing it using a biological product.
First big success, Damien, is in furrow applications at the time of planting. We like to establish that microbial community around that root zone early, robust, fast. That's step number one. Number two, frequent usage of biology, mostly from a very diverse spectrum.
Yep.
If we have to use fungicide in season, you got to do it. But what I like to do is come back in a convenient application and re-inoculate that plant with beneficial microorganisms. That'll give you some more longevity and hopefully reduce the amount of times you have to use fungicide. That's been a critical step for us. And then anytime I'm deploying nutrition, whether it's commercial synthetic fertilizer or organic amendments, I like to add some biology to that application, because I think biology, the microorganisms, living fungi, living bacteria, they're the ultimate delivery mechanism for that nutrient into the plant. And so those are probably my three big, base hit, probably double hits.
At time of all right, so you go to somebody and you get them turned on to it, and they're like, all right, I trust you. You've got 15 years of experience using these products. You're going to tell them, put it in at time of planting in furrow, but you're not going to put it all stacked up there. To Ashton's point, if you can overdo that and you're overspending and you're not getting your bang for the buck. So you put one of your treatments there. Your second thing is?
If you have to use fungicide, follow up with a re-inoculation of beneficial microorganisms.
Okay, now that's the tough part, because fungicide ends up sometimes killing. It works in an antagonistic manner to some of the biologicals. Okay.
Yeah,
and so do you see a future where you can have your clients not even using a fungicide and use a biological approach instead?
Absolutely. Yep. We've been successful with that very framework, Damien, for quite a few years.
Okay, then your third application, your third thing was?
Third thing, shit, now I forgot.
Nutrition.
Stack it with nutrition. I was just seeing if Ashton and Clint were.
Yeah, test. It was a test.
They were paying attention.
Yeah.
Ashton got been left during Clint's response, so I don't know what that was all about. All right, so that was my last thing, because I've heard it said that we can reduce or eliminate fungicide, and it turns out we've overused fungicide anyhow because of the whole fungi to bacteria ratio in the soil, etc. Is this the next thing? Are we going to look back someday at all the fungicide and say, oh my God, just like doctors used leeches to try and fix people's health 200 years ago? Is that what we're going to look at? Is fungicide today's leeches?
I don't know if I call them leeches. I mean, they're an essential tool, right? But there's so many other tools in the toolbox. I think in Ag Today, we forgot about all the other integrated pest management strategies. And I think the collective group here is trying to bring back the whole toolbox for the benefit of the farmer.
I think our industry has done such a disservice by defining mode of action and defining some of the terms where it's synthetic. It's got to be synthetic to work, and I think that's such a disservice, and it's changed manipulated our minds to think that that's the only way we can get things done. So, kudos to these guys for open.
Right. Speaking of opening up minds, so Clint, you're the guy that's kind of you're a pioneer out here in this. You make the stuff. You have a company, Calibrated Agronomy, that sells the stuff. What's the biggest thing when like that aha thing, when you've got a customer that says, I'm skeptical, I don't believe in this, it's all over. What's the thing where all of a sudden they go from skeptic to believer? Because obviously it's results, but what's the story there?
Well, I think ultimately they have to be ready to do that. There's a lot of farmers that are content and growing fantastic crops, but I think the big aha moment is connecting the food we eat back to how we grow it. And holistic doesn't have to mean ineffective. 10 years ago, if somebody's talking holistic practices, I would have said, no, thanks. And today my mindset has completely changed, that we can do things, but it takes a little more work, a little more attention to detail. And that's what we're here to really help guide farmers through is our
Holistic doesn't mean
experience.
holistic doesn't mean organic, but there's people that probably think that too, right?
100%. Yeah, so that the big aha moments is I've had a lot of guys in tough economic times that have been pouring the coals to fertilizer, and we'll take their P&K and just completely pull it out. Maybe they've got big expenses that's come out, and they grow just as good at crops as they've always had. There's been a lot of head scratching around that multiple times. So,
speaking of which, so Ashton, is the pitch for you? You're a smart guy. Economics, on the economic benefit of biologicals. Are you trading money? Are you saving money? Or is it because you're making more? In other words, did you just trade this product expense now for a biological product expense? Or is it that you're spending less? Or is it that you're spending the same and making more? Tell me about the economics of the biological usage in your farming operation.
I'd say from the beginning in the planning stage, obviously the budget's the budget, right? And that we all know that they're tight this year, last year, and they probably will be again. So I would say we're trading some products for products we would have used to use in the past. Yes. Every year is going to be a little different, like Jared said on the fungicide piece, where maybe we're thinking about using 2 synthetic products. Now we're going to incorporate biology with one pass. So the budget definitely hasn't changed. If anything, I'd say, we're shooting for higher yields by, adding more nutrition passes and more biology passes throughout the year. So our goals are actually getting higher, on the yield front, which is going to help on the budget a little bit too. But no, I'd say the budget, as tight as things are here right now, that we've had to incorporate those, and a lot of it's through efficiencies, like they were talking on fertilizer. We're basically all strip till on our corn. So not only are we getting some efficiencies from biologicals, but we're also getting efficiencies from concentrating our fertilizer, in the strip too. So it's changing the way we manage overall, but it takes time to implement more of those steps.
Yeah. Jared, on the last kind of wrap here on this, on the BS of biologicals, you've been sorting through it for longer than probably any of us. The journey, give me the journey, and then also where we're going.
The journey? Oh, the journey for me started with an idea. See what can be done with harnessing the power of nature. We know that plants form associations with soil organisms. Well, let's try to uncover that, see what it's all about. So my journey started just natural curiosity. Trying to truly understand what plants and soil microorganisms, what those interactions look like. And then, like I say, as testing methodologies came to the table, these testing methods actually allowed us to see the microbes, so to speak. You could pull a soil sample and then it tells you 1,000 different species of microbes that's in there. It's like, wow, it just becomes real. It becomes alive. And then, with some of the work like Dr. James White has done with the rhizophagy cycle at Rutgers University, his whole vision has been, I want to help people see the microorganisms.
Yep.
That's his tagline, right? And so that's been the journey. It's a journey of curiosity. And I think where it's going as new technologies come to the table, as we get more dialed in on understanding what these technologies are telling us, I think this becomes a more biologically dominant industry.
I agree. I think that it's going to have to. I think the environmental pressure is coming. I'm not pulling this. Oh yeah, the enviro cops are coming, but it's just there's too many eyeballs on what we do. And historically, we've used a lot of chemistry. We've used some. We used to throw atrazine around like it was candy. I mean, we've done some bad things in this business, and this is just one more evolution of it. Where are we going with it, Clint?
I think the future is just like we pull a soil fertility test. We're gonna accompany that with a biological soil test. One of the things that when I started to grow our company and business out west and started to hang around people like Jared, they required an RNA report of my product. They wanted to know every species that was in it. So I think better transparency from the guys like me that are producing something. And I think we got to know what our limiting factor is. If somebody's trying to sell you a phosphorus solubilizing product, but you have great phosphorus solubilizing bacteria in your soil, probably not going to see much from it. So I think the evolution is this all gets accompanied into more of a management framework, as Jared would say, and we can manage from there and truly put what we need on. So.
Yeah, I agree with every part of that. And it's going to get more and more proven, and that will help the acceptance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, once it's that's that whole skepticism is derived from there was a lot of stuff out here that it wasn't traceable, et cetera. And so the verification, as you talked about, is happening.
It's happening, and that's one of the other BSs around soil biology is the industry's learning on the farmer as a whole. They're learning on the farmer, and that's about to go away, as these companies get less of them are around. So
if I want to find out more about this, where do I go? If I want to check out your lineup of products, where do I go?
CalibrateYourAgronomy.com. Find us on Facebook.
CalibrateYourAgronomy.com. A whole series of videos like this, also little snippets that are only like a few minutes long, so you can just check this out. You can share this with somebody that needs to learn from it. And by the way, it is really cool stuff. I'm happy that they involve me in this because I learn something every time I'm on here with them, and I know that you do too. So it's CalibrateYourAgronomy.com. Go check it out. This is the Calibrated Agronomy video series. You are joined by my friend Ashton Gronewold and Clint Frese and Jared Cook. Till next time, thank you for joining us. Check it out. Biologicals. We just cut through the BS of biologicals. Till next time, I'm Damian Mason.